Welcome to the beginner series where I'm talking you through every step of makeup as if you were a child, because in my opinion this is the easiest way to explain something to a bunch of people where I don't know what kind of knowledge you already have. And today we are talking about under eye concealer. In the last two episodes we already covered primers, foundations, and now we do the same with under eye concealer. And I promise you this is not as complicated as foundation, because the main part you already know. It's all about color theory. I have not applied concealer to my eyes yet. There is a bit of foundation that is currently happening in that area, but no concealer. And you can probably see that in this part of my face, my eyes are a bit like bluish. They do have a blue undertone. That makes them usually look very, very tired, very dull. But what we want to have is we want to look awake. We don't want to create like the 2016 bright under eye area where we basically just drew a white triangle under the eyes. It's all about enhancing our features, making them maybe a little bit fresher if you want to. If you want to enhance your under eye circles, like go for it. Fuck yeah, I love that look too, but I don't love that look on me. So this is my drawer full of concealers. I do have a fucking lot, and I want to start with something that I never ever skip in my concealer routine. I talked in the primer video about those under painting glow primers, and I found a similar product, but that is for the under eyes. It's the Rare Beauty Under Eye Brightener. This is not a concealer, this is a brightening product. So if you feel like your under eye area looks too dark, you don't want to color correct with too much product, I highly recommend going into this, because this has nearly no coverage. Think about translucency. This has nearly no opaqueness. This goes on so sheer, but all you're left with is a bright sheen on your under eyes. If you want to color correct, or maybe you want to do both, it is very important to look up onto the color wheel. Let me pull out that color wheel again. Haha, I know. We need that a couple times in this series. Color correction means that you basically want to neutralize one color with another color. You cannot neutralize green with yellow. It's just impossible, because if you mix green and yellow, you end up with a lighter yellowish green. You can neutralize colors with their complementary shades, and complementary means on the color wheel they are on the opposite of that wheel. Or if we're talking about the Mansell color system, complementary means they're on the opposite of that ball, of that sphere that we were talking about. Do I pronounce that word right? Because sphere, even in German, sphere, it is such a weird word. And if you now want to know what kind of color correcting product you need, take a look at the color wheel. Look at what shade your under eye circles are the closest in that color wheel, and then you look just at the opposite. My under eye color is somewhere between this blue and this purple shade. That means when I go to the opposite, I need something yellowish orange. You can now go out and buy a color corrector that is exactly in this shade. Or you can just take a look around, because there are also color correctors sometimes built in a concealer. I do not recommend trying this because it will never look good. Or you can look for example, other under eye correcting brighteners. There is a new one from NARS that is apparently very good. Then we have one from Smashbox that is originally made by Becca. My current one that I use is the Charlotte Tilbury corrector in the shade Fair. And it looks like that. And when we look like that on the color wheel, this is basically somewhere around, I'd say a bit more in this area. So this would be actually okay if I had more of a green tint to my under eye circles. But since this is, again, translucency, it is sheer, or you can apply it in a sheer way, this will work too. And what I do is I take a concealer brush. The tiniest amount is enough. Don't slather on your corrector like you see it on TikTok. That is just bullshit. And what I do is now I go very, very specifically on top of these areas that do look a bit bluish. I really hope you can see it in the camera, because in the mirror I can see how this eye, especially this area, is like neutralized. It looks nearly the same as the rest of my face, and when you compare it with this eye, I still have this blue shadow going on. If you look now very close, you might see a tiny line going on here from that corrector, because this shade is very different from my face color. That's why corrector is not enough. For me, not. There are people where corrector is enough, like I can only speak out of my personal experience. That's why we need a concealer to cover that. If you are a full coverage person, you can skip the corrector part, because the full coverage concealer will do everything for you. That only works when you're 15. I'm sorry, because first of all, with 15, you don't have anything to color correct. You can go straight in with concealer. You don't even need concealer, but that's a whole nother topic. But the older you get, the more delicate this eye area gets. This is a very thin part of the skin. This is very, very sensitive. And the older you are, the more wrinkles you get. Completely normal. We love wrinkles. We love lines. They're beautiful. They're just a sign that you lived your life the very best. But when you have a more wrinkly under eye area, a full coverage concealer will settle into that lines and will make look everything worse. That's why I love these thin layer of products. A thin layer of a color corrector followed by a thin layer of concealer, and then it does not matter if that concealer is full coverage or not. To demonstrate this, I want to take the Hourglass Vanish Concealer. This is a full coverage concealer, but we can make this work very effortlessly, look very smooth out, even though I'm only wearing a skin tint and I just had the tiniest amount of color corrector. When it comes to your under eye concealer, always think about what do you want to have. If you want to have a more brightening effect, choose a shade that is maximum 2 shades lighter than your skin color. I personally prefer only 1, maybe 1.5 shades lighter. But if you don't like the brightened under eye, you can choose a liquid concealer that is basically in your color range. That is the same shade as your face. There are tons of techniques of how to apply concealer. I will not tell you these techniques because there is no right, no wrong. You should try what you like and always follow the natural structure of your face. Like I could tell you like do this and then this technique, but you might not want that. Maybe your area around this eye area here cannot work with that much concealer on that side. Maybe you only need it here. Maybe you do have a bit more darkness underneath that, then you want to drag the concealer a bit more down. It's all up to you. My personal favorite technique is actually applying it here and here. That works for me, that works for my structure on the face, but that will not work for everybody. Again, there is no right or wrong concealer technique. And if you do the 2016 triangular concealer, you know what? Just do it. If you like it, that's fine. So I take the same concealer brush that I basically had the corrector on, and I now blend that out. When I blend that out, I try not to drag it too much down or too far up. I basically just tap it in the place where I already applied this, because this is where I want to have the coverage. I take sometimes when I do my face before the eyes on the eyelid too, like so. And there you have a perfectly concealed, tiny bit brightened eye without looking too bright. So personally, I'm a big fan of a sponge, so I go over everything with a makeup sponge to just even that out. You can apply the concealer like initially with a sponge. I don't like that, to be honest. And before I set my under eye now, I always let it sit for a while so that the concealer can just breathe. It can oxidize, everything oxidizes, and it can just sit there. Then I go over it again with my sponge to even out any kind of wrinkles and lines where the concealer has settled, and then I set it. Talking about settling concealer, because this is, in my opinion, the worst media lie ever. When you have the tiniest line on your under eyes, concealer will settle. That's just the rule. Every single advertisement that I see, oh, no settling into fine lines, that is just a lie. This is normal. It is completely fine and normal. The best way to prevent that settling is what I just said. Let your concealer sit a bit, let it settle into those lines. Then take a sponge, go over that line that it just settled in, blend that out again, and then straight in with a powder. But what powder to use on the under eye area after you conceal, that we will cover in another video. So that's it about under eye concealer. If you have any questions that I forgot to cover here in that video, let me know down below. If not, thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to check out the links in the info box, because there's like my other socials. There's also a link where you can support this channel by buying me a slice of pizza, if you of course want to, no pressure here. And I would be super duper happy if you subscribe to this channel and if you tell me if you find this beginner series helpful. So thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next one.